General Hospital spoilers for Wednesday, April 9th, reveal that Alexis is deeply confused as the evidence of Christina's crime piles up, forming an undeniable picture of her daughter's intentional criminal behavior. Surveillance footage from the garage shows Christina clearly cutting the brake lines, along with physical evidence of the tools she used found in her apartment, and Lucky Spencer's testimony about hearing Christina confess, all of which place Alexis in an indefensible position, unable to make the justifications she usually does. As an experienced lawyer, Alexis understands the severity of the situation. Her daughter not only committed attempted murder but could also face many years in prison. Each new piece of evidence feels like a knife to Alexis's heart. Not just because it confirms Christina's guilt but because it exposes the painful truth that she has failed to teach her daughter about ethics, responsibility, and the consequences of her actions. One of the adjustments Alexis is undergoing is rethinking her entire approach to motherhood. For many years, Alexis took pride in raising her daughters to be strong, independent, and ethical women. She tried to balance unconditional love with teaching them about personal responsibility, always confident she had found the right balance. But now, faced with evidence of Christina's criminal behavior, Alexis is forced to question every decision she has made. Did she focus too much on protecting her daughter from Sunny's influence and forget to teach her about the consequences of anger and hatred? Did she inadvertently enable the development of a child who believes she can act without facing consequences? This painful adjustment forces Alexis to recognize not only Christina's failure but her own as a mother. It leads to one of Alexis's new obsessions, the obsession with whether she might have contributed to the situation. In sleepless nights, Alexis replays every moment of raising Christina, wondering if she could have done something differently. She recalls times when she overlooked Christina's bad behavior as a child. Times when she justified her daughter's impulsiveness as part of Sunny's inherited personality. And times when she focused too much on keeping Christina away from her father's influence while forgetting to teach her about personal ethics. This obsession becomes so intense that Alexis starts questioning every decision she made with Sam and Molly, wondering if she's making the same mistakes with her other daughters. The new obsession with Alexis's willingness to do anything to protect Christina is turning her into a distorted version of herself. Alexis, who has always prided herself on respect for the law and professional ethics, is now considering actions she never thought she would take. She secretly approaches Diane Miller to discuss defense strategies, not to ensure a fair trial but to find a way to help Christina escape or lessen the punishment, regardless of the evidence. She's tried to convince Rick and Elizabeth not to tell the police about their suspicions of Christina, citing family relationships and appealing to their mercy. Even more concerning, Alexis has begun investigating the possibility that someone else might have committed the sabotage, hoping to pin the blame on them to save Christina, a tactic she would have previously condemned from both an ethical and legal perspective. This transformation in Alexis not only shocks those around her but also herself. In a rare moment of self-awareness during the crisis, Alexis wonders if she is becoming the female version of Sunny, someone who will do anything, regardless of the law or ethics, to protect their children. This thought is particularly disturbing for a woman who has spent much of her adult life fighting against exactly this kind of behavior. But with each new piece of evidence about Christina's guilt, with each step forward in the judicial process, Alexis feels herself being pushed closer to a moral abyss she's unsure she can return from. At a tense family meeting in Alexis's living room, as Molly and Sam try to bring her back to reason, Alexis bursts out with painful honesty. "You don't understand," she yells, tears streaming down her face. "Christina is the child I've fought the hardest to keep safe from Sunny's world. Every decision I've made, every battle I've chosen, has been about keeping her from becoming a Corinthos. And now, despite all my efforts, she's still become the worst version of her father. How can I give up on her now? How can I accept that I've failed completely as a mother?" As the evidence continues to pile up and Christina's imprisonment becomes increasingly inevitable, Alexis stands at a crossroads in her own life. She can continue down the path of doing anything to protect Christina at any cost, possibly losing Sam and Molly in the process and certainly losing the professional reputation and moral identity she's spent her life building. Or she can face the painful truth that Christina must take responsibility for her actions, and her role as a mother now is to support her daughter through this process, not shield her from the consequences. As Port Charles watches Alexis's inner turmoil, one thing is becoming clear: this is not just the story of a mother trying to protect her daughter, but also the story of a woman being forced to confront the truth about the choices she has made in her life and the person she truly wants to become when faced with her greatest challenge. And in the process, Alexis may find a new form of courage, not the courage to fight against the world for her daughter, but the courage to accept that sometimes true love means letting the ones we love face the consequences of their actions. Sidwell is making a strategically and sophisticated work proposal. An opportunity that on the surface seems appealing but hides much more complicated motives. In his luxurious office, with a panoramic view of Port Charles stretching outside the window, Sidwell presents Natalia with a consulting contract, which he says will leverage her unique experience and long-standing connections in the town. This offer is not only financially generous but also promises a position of power and influence that Natalia has never had throughout her long time in the shadow of her past. As she holds the contract in her hands, feeling the weight of the high-end paper and seeing the incredible salary figure, Natalia can't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. After everything she's been through, she's finally being recognized for her worth. Natalia is ready to create a new story about herself. No longer the former stripper of Sunny or Sidwell's abandoned mistress, but a woman with power and her own purpose. In recent weeks, she has quietly built her position in the Port Charles community, attending charity events, connecting with influential people, and even investing in a few local businesses. Every step she takes is carefully calculated to craft an image of a respectable woman, a successful businesswoman, and a valuable member of the community. This new story is not just for others but also for herself, a story of redemption and rebirth, about overcoming past wounds and building a brighter future. One of the new obsessions forming in Natalia's mind concerns Marco, the son she has had to keep the true identity of his father a secret from for many years. As Marco grew up believing Sidwell was his biological father, Natalia had to live with the burden of this lie, watching it slowly corrode her relationship with her son. Now, with Marco back in Port Charles and forming his own relationships, Natalia is obsessed with the possibility that the truth might be exposed. Every time she sees Marco and Sunny in the same room, her heart races, fearing that one of them will notice the undeniable similarities. This obsession has turned into a powerful fear that she will lose Marco entirely if he finds out she lied to him his entire life. And that fear is driving her to act in ways she never would have considered before. This is leading to one of the new shifts in Natalia, her willingness to use any available tools, including working with Sidwell, to protect her secret and Marco's future. Natalia, who was once a kind but complex woman, is now gradually developing sharper edges, a readiness to manipulate and deceive to achieve her goals. She has started gathering information about Sunny, his habits, his weaknesses, and especially his health status, not out of lingering affection but to gain an advantage if needed. This change didn't happen overnight but is the result of years of fear, years of keeping secrets, and an increasing fear that everything she has built could collapse in an instant. This change is making the story of Natalia's possible rebellion against Sunny not only more believable but also more dangerous. Previously, the idea of Natalia turning her back on the man she once loved so deeply that she had his child seemed unthinkable. But now, with years of resentment and fear built up, along with Sidwell's appearance offering a path to revenge, Natalia is considering what she once would have deemed unforgivable. The story now unfolding is not just about a wounded woman seeking revenge, but also about a mother willing to do anything to protect her relationship with her son, even if it means going up against the man she once loved. This is leading to one of the new shocks as Natalia begins to leak bits of Sunny's past to Sidwell, not all at once, but piece by piece. Each piece carefully designed to cause maximum damage to the Corinthos Empire. These pieces of information, about secret dealings, betrayed old allies, and even details about Sunny's most vulnerable moments, are providing Sidwell with the ammunition he needs in the escalating war against Sunny. The shock doesn't just come from Natalia providing information, but from the level of detail and accuracy of that information, showing that over the years, she has kept every secret Sunny trusted her with, not out of love but because one day she might need them. As Natalia stands in Sidwell's office, looking out over Port Charles, she feels a new sense of power. With the signed contract lying on the table and the plan taking shape, she is no longer a victim of circumstance but an active player shaping her own future. However, behind her confident exterior is a deep fear that she may be gambling too much. If Marco finds out the truth, not just about his biological father but about her role in undermining Sunny, will he forgive her? And if Sunny discovers her betrayal, how will he react? As Natalia leaves, Sidwell watches her with a satisfied smile. He has waited years for this opportunity, to use Natalia as a weapon against Sunny. But what Sidwell doesn't realize is that Natalia is no longer the easily manipulated woman he once knew. She's playing her own game now, with motives and goals that even Sidwell can't predict. In the power struggle unfolding in Port Charles, Natalia may just have become a new pawn. But she's quickly transforming into a player that both Sunny and Sidwell will need to be wary of. Curtis told Laura that she should be cautious of the stories Ezra was creating, his voice carrying an urgency rarely seen in this usually composed man. In Laura's mayoral office, Curtis presented his findings, fragmented pieces that, when put together, formed a troubling picture of the man who was quickly becoming one of the most influential figures in town. One of the new pressures Ezra was creating was the way he was infiltrating Port Charles's power structure, step by step, methodically. Unlike previous enemies, Ezra wasn't using violence or direct threats, but instead a far more subtle strategy, influence. Through generous donations to the hospital, funding for art programs, and proposals for promising job-creating development projects, Ezra positioned himself as an indispensable benefactor to Port Charles. With each project approved, Ezra not only gained gratitude but also favored debts, a kind of currency he was accumulating at an alarming rate. This pressure became particularly dangerous considering Ezra's interactions with Drew, a partnership that was really starting to make things even more chaotic. Curtis discovered a series of secret meetings between the two men, held in remote locations at odd hours. These meetings showed a disturbing pattern. Drew, as the CEO of Aurora Media and a respected member of the community, was providing Ezra not only with a powerful media platform but also with the legitimacy he needed to carry out his plans. What made the situation truly insane was not just the collaboration between Ezra and Drew, but the scope and ambition of what they were planning. Curtis uncovered that they were quietly acquiring significant assets across Port Charles, not only commercial and residential real estate but also essential services like water, electricity, and telecommunications. Their goal seemed to be to create a covert monopoly, controlling the town's infrastructure to the point where every major decision would ultimately have to go through them. Even crazier was the way Drew was changing under Ezra's influence. Curtis shared with Laura recordings showing Drew, once known for his integrity, becoming cold, calculating, and even authoritarian. In one meeting, Drew described Port Charles as an untapped market, ready for revitalization, a shocking phrase when talking about a community he once considered home. Drew even discussed using Aurora Media to reshape public opinion on their projects. As Laura listened and reviewed the evidence, she felt a cold shiver run down her spine. As mayor, she had faced many threats to Port Charles, but never one as subtle and comprehensive as this. Ezra and Drew weren't targeting one aspect of Port Charles, they were trying to seize the entire town from the ground up, and they were doing it under the guise of progress and development. When Curtis left Laura's office, he stopped at the door with a final warning about Ezra. Not only was he an ambitious businessman, but also a man with a purpose, willing to eliminate anyone in his way. And with Drew by his side, Ezra had an ally that everyone trusted, that made him twice as dangerous. When the door closed behind Curtis, Laura returned to her desk, looking out over the Port Charles harbor and the buildings across the bay. This town had overcome many challenges, but the coming battle might be one of the hardest yet, a fight not against obvious villains, but against those who brought progress and prosperity. Christina tried to convince her father to see things her way, her pleading gaze and emotional voice as she stood in the expansive living room of the Corinthos mansion. In her orange prison outfit, with her hands shackled and 2 officers guarding the door, Christina looked out of place in a home she had once moved freely around. This was the first time Sonny had agreed to meet his daughter since she was sentenced, a meeting Christina had begged for through countless unanswered letters. She tried to explain that her actions, cutting the brake line, weren't an intentional attempt to harm, but rather an emotional reaction after the death of her unborn child. An act of a woman in deep grief, no longer fully aware of the consequences. The story Sonny was facing with new pressures was becoming more complex by the minute. Not only was he dealing with his declining health, heart attacks and the need for surgery, which he continued to refuse, but he also had to consider Christina's situation. Each of her pleas, each tear that fell, added pressure to Sonny's already frail heart. At the same time, he faced pressure from others in the family. Alexis was urging him to use his influence to help reduce Christina's sentence. Carly, though no longer his wife, warned him about the negative impact it would have on Avery and Donna if he continued to deny his oldest daughter. And Jason, his closest friend and right-hand man, had expressed concern that Sonny might be making decisions based on emotions rather than reason, a rare occurrence for him. These pressures were causing one of the new shocks to emerge. Sonny's wavering resolve. The man known for his decisiveness and ability to make difficult choices without hesitation was now showing signs of uncertainty. When Christina finished her plea, Sonny didn't immediately respond as everyone expected, no firm headshake, no flat-out rejection. Instead, he sat silently, his complex gaze fixed on his daughter. A brief moment of hesitation flickering across his typically unreadable face. The shock wasn't just from Sonny's reaction but from the realization that he was at a crossroads, not just regarding Christina's future, but about his very nature, whether he would be the father who forgave and protected his daughter regardless of the consequences, or whether he would maintain the boundaries he had set, even if it caused him pain. This was truly making things explode in the Corinthos family and throughout Port Charles. The rumors of the meeting between Sonny and Christina spread quickly, sparking speculation about whether Sonny might be considering intervening to help his daughter. Rick Lansing, who had recovered from the accident but still bore both physical and mental scars, publicly expressed outrage at the possibility of Christina receiving a reduced sentence. Molly, still unable to forgive her sister, declared that she would cut ties with both Sonny and Alexis if they tried to help Christina escape responsibility. And Elizabeth, another victim of the accident, had become a strong voice for justice, reminding everyone that Christina's actions had real and painful consequences. Meanwhile, at the Port Charles Women's Prison, other inmates had started treating Christina differently, aware that she might soon be released due to her father's influence. This led to isolation and even threats, putting Christina in a new, dangerous position. And in the underground world of Port Charles, Sonny's rivals were watching closely, considering his final decision regarding Christina as a sign of whether he was weakening or still the unshakable ruler they once knew. When the meeting between father and daughter ended and Christina was escorted back to prison, Sonny still hadn't made his final decision. He only promised to think about what she had said and contact her at the appropriate time. But the way he watched her as she was led away, the sadness and conflict visible in his gaze, showed that this decision would not come easily. And whatever path Sonny chose, it would have far-reaching consequences not only for the Corinthos family but for the entire power balance in Port Charles. Cody pushed Lulu into a dangerous situation. A bold move from a man who was accustomed to using others' secrets to serve his personal goals. In recent weeks, Cody had uncovered a shocking truth about Gio Palmieri, not just the new bartender at Metro Court, but the abandoned son of Dante and Brooke Lynn. With this explosive information in hand, Cody wasn't rushing to use it directly, but instead was deploying a far more sophisticated plan, pushing Lulu into a position where she would uncover the truth, making her the unwitting trigger for this ticking time bomb. The story now unfolding about how Cody was manipulating the situation began when he accidentally let Lulu see an old photo of Brooke Lynn while pregnant, a photo that, theoretically, shouldn't exist since Brooke Lynn had kept her pregnancy a secret. Cody then arranged for Lulu to overhear a conversation between Lois and Brooke Lynn, mentioning secrets and the child without being specific. Each piece of information Cody put in Lulu's hands was carefully calculated to stimulate her reporter's instincts, pushing her to dig deeper into a secret she didn't know would change her life forever. The puzzle about Joe's identity was getting crazier as now not just one person held the key to the story. Lois, who had helped Brooke Lynn keep the secret and arranged for Gio to be adopted, was growing worried as she saw Lulu begin to ask more pointed questions. Brooke Lynn, already stressed about Joe's presence in Port Charles, was now panicking as she realized Lulu might be on the verge of discovering the truth. And Dante, completely unaware of the child he had with Brooke Lynn, was being thrust into the center of an emotional storm he wasn't prepared to face. The situation became even crazier when Spinelli, after Lulu asked for help investigating Brooke Lynn's past, accidentally discovered an old medical record showing she gave birth around the same time Gio was born. This information, combined with DNA analysis Spinelli had secretly done from a glass Gio had drunk from, gave Lulu irrefutable evidence. Gio wasn't just Brooke Lynn's child but was very likely Dante's. As the final pieces of this puzzle fell into place, Port Charles was bracing for an emotional earthquake that few could predict the aftermath of. Meanwhile, Cody sat back, watching from a distance, pleased with how his plan was unfolding. His true motive remained unclear. Was he simply enjoying causing trouble? Or was there a deeper agenda tied to the Spencer legacy that he was still trying to claim a part of? Or perhaps this was a way to get revenge on Brooke Lynn for rejecting him? Whatever the reason, one thing was certain: when the truth about Gio was finally revealed, no one involved would be the same, and Cody would be there, ready to exploit the chaos he had created. As Lulu stood on the brink of discovering this life-changing truth, she had no idea that she was a pawn in Cody's much larger game. And when the truth about Gio finally came to light, it wouldn't just affect Dante, Brooke Lynn, and Lulu, but it would shake the very foundations of the Spencer, Quartermaine, and Falconeri families, creating new alliances and enemies in ways even Cody couldn't predict.